Breaking news out of East Baltimore, where police say a woman shot a man during an argument and barricaded herself inside a home. Lawmakers debate gender-affirming medical care for kids and teens. Why some are saying parents need to consent for treatment. Residents voice their concern over soaring crime through Baltimore City in terms of property crimes. Fox 45 pressing the mayor tonight on quality of life offenses.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
We are following that breaking news out of East Baltimore, a shooting along Sheldon Avenue in the Bel Air Edison neighborhood. Police say a woman shot a 41-year-old man during an argument. They say the suspect barricaded herself inside a residence. It's not clear if she is still inside at this hour. The victim was rushed to the hospital. Police not revealing the severity of his injuries, but say he is stable. Of course, this is a developing story. We'll keep you updated on air and online as new information comes into our newsroom. Today, lawmakers met once again in Annapolis to talk about some hot-button issues, including gender-affirming care for children and book bans in the classroom. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala. We begin tonight with a debate over consent for medical gender-affirming care. Right now, teens aged 16 and 17 can seek gender-affirming care without parental consent, but a new bill is looking to change that. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has details.
This bill focuses on transgender youth in Maryland. Supporters say that kids between 16 and 17 should not be allowed to get medical or surgical gender-affirming care without getting their parental consent first. And this is part of a national conversation and debate that we're seeing play out in states across the country.
Today, I am here to plead with not only the legislature, but the people of Maryland.
A group of Republican lawmakers in Maryland, plus 3 Democrats, calling for parents to have the final say in medical gender-affirming care for their kids.
It doesn't hurt anybody. People can still get this if their parents want them to.
Delegate Lauren Arikan, representing Baltimore and Harford counties, leading the way on House Bill 722. She says the legislation would require kids 16 and 17 to get their parents to sign off on this type of care, like surgeries or medication such as estrogen or testosterone. The proposal does not include social transitioning, like calling someone by a different pronoun. According to a June 2022 study from UCLA School of Law Williams Institute, 300,000 kids between 13 and 17 years old identify as transgender nationwide. That's about 1.4% of kids that age across the country. In Maryland, it's unclear, though, how many kids fall within the scope of this new bill.
So do you have any examples of this happening now?
I only have examples from families who have reached out to me anonymously to say that their children are under a lot of pressure from the children's therapist to transition.
Delegate Arikan adds right now, Maryland does not track the data on when someone 16 or 17 gets this type of medical treatment without parental consent.
But the families who don't know about it, their children should not be going through this.
This hot topic often politicized. Jamie Reed, a former case manager in a gender clinic in St. Louis, sparked headlines after raising concerns about what she saw going on at the clinic.
It is time to stop this being a political issue and start this being about doing the right thing for kids in Maryland and the United States.
Since you seem to have had a lot of experience in this area.
Reed now speaking in support of the bill during a committee hearing Wednesday.
Medical interventions known as gender-affirming care is not clearly evidence-based, and it is becoming increasingly clear that young people are being harmed by these interventions, especially when this is occurring outside of parental support or knowledge.
But some lawmakers on the panel quick to raise questions.
So can you point to me in last year's legislation where it did not?
Could you explain to the committee what those incentives are?
What proof do you have?
Do we know the average age that they're finally deciding? Okay, so obviously they were a certain age, and then now they're deciding to go through the detransitions.
If passed, medical providers could face a fine or jail time. Right now, it's unclear when or if there will be a vote on this proposal.
Several LGBTQ rights groups did testify in opposition of this proposal. They say that this bill is unnecessary and could actually negatively impact the mental health for transgender youth in Maryland. In Annapolis, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, another issue for lawmakers today, the battle over book bans in classrooms. Lawmakers are set to debate the Freedom to Read Act tonight. The bill includes protections against discrimination for school and public library workers, along with the books in their libraries. It calls to establish standards for state-funded libraries and says in part that libraries should not ban or remove material over partisan disapproval. Stay tuned to Fox 45. Keith Daniels will have the latest on the book ban debate tonight at 10.
It's unnecessarily unsafe now.
I'm getting up in my wonder years. I want to enjoy them in a crime-free area.
We just felt like we just weren't safe anymore. And like monetarily, we couldn't afford to keep having these losses.
Despite a decline in shootings and homicides, some Baltimore City residents still voicing fear and frustration over city crime. Car thefts and quality of life crimes continue to soar throughout Baltimore. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor pressed Mayor Scott today about residents' concerns.
Yeah, to some, quality of life crimes are considered low-level offenses. But to the residents being affected by this rise in crime, they're experiencing major ramifications.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
At a press conference inside City Hall Wednesday.
Keeping people alive and stopping people from dying should be the #1 focus.
Mayor Brandon Scott touting a decline in violent crime.
We are down 17% in homicides and 8.7, almost 9% in non-fatal shootings.
But not all crime is down under Scott's tenure. According to the latest data report from BPD, robberies, auto thefts and break-ins, and overall property crimes all up significantly compared to this time last year, especially car crimes. Since taking office in late 2020, auto thefts and break-ins accelerating to record highs in 2023.
It sounds like someone just went on a one-street rampage.
Remnants of the rise.
There's glass everywhere.
Litter the streets and sidewalks surrounding Patterson Park.
It's a bad look for the city. It makes it look disgusting.
Less than 2 months into the year, BPD already recording more than 1,600 car-related crimes citywide. A closer look at BPD's crime map revealing the Patterson Park community among the hardest hit. On Tuesday, when walking the 16-block stretch of Eastern Avenue along the park, Fox 45 counting 62 piles of glass from shattered car windows.
I'll illegally park on the smaller streets before I'll park on Patterson or Eastern.
Some residents learning to steer clear of certain streets.
Pathetic.
While others debate driving out of the city entirely.
We're moving out at the end of this month. We are moving to Catonsville.
I went to my car this Monday. The same window was shattered. Got me to thinking, like, is this a safe place for me to be?
Even with the carjackings and with the broken windows, that like it just wasn't safe anymore where I lived.
Fox 45 taking those concerns to the mayor today.
What is your message to residents who are considering leaving the city because of an increase in quality of life crimes?
A couple things. That, again, we're focused on that, right? I think that what I would ask everyone to do is remember that when BPD goes out and makes these auto theft arrests, you heard me say this to you before when you asked a similar question. Again, you just heard about them making 365 of them over a several-month period. I want you to take back to those folks is that the police department is making those arrests. It's about what's happening on the other parts of the system, and we're working, obviously, as we all were, been in Annapolis recently talking about how to change state laws to keep folks and hold them accountable, but we need everybody to continue to do that as well.
You're citing the arrests, but car thefts are still up 90% this year.
Again, I think that you're answering your own question, right? If we make the arrest and then that person goes to jail and then comes back home, that's not a question for the mayor of Baltimore or the police department.
So who do you hold accountable for that?
We all have to hold accountable every part of the system. So I'm not a judge, right? I don't determine how long someone stays in jail.
And I'm really struck by the fact that any mayor would say when there's a major problem, you've got to look elsewhere.
Political analyst and rhetoric professor Richard Vatz weighing in on the mayor's response.
That's not the answer. The answer is you set the tone. What are you going to do to change that tone in your city?
Without a clear solution to the city's climbing quality of life crimes, Vatz warning voters could soon make a change of their own with a mayoral primary election looming.
People are losing confidence in him.
And according to recent polling from Lake Research Partners out of Washington, D.C., former Mayor Sheila Dixon is leading Mayor Scott in the polls by 8 points. That primary election now just 3 months away. Reporting from outside of City Hall, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
I'm Christine Frizzau on Capitol Hill, where the president's brother spent the day answering questions from House impeachment investigators. What he told them and why Democrats say it's time to move on.
I hope you've been enjoying the last couple of days. It has been pretty good, all things considered, when we're talking about February weather around here, because we're returning to our rainy pattern starting Thursday and a colder start to the weekend. But it's not going to last too long. We've got a warm-up coming as we head into next week. We're going to show you that, too, coming up.
The race for Maryland's open Senate seat is heating up. New polling shows Republican candidate, former Governor Larry Hogan, with a double-digit lead over his Democratic opponents. According to the statewide poll of 600 likely voters, Hogan is ahead by 16 points in a hypothetical matchup with Congressman David Trone. He leads also Brooks in a hypothetical matchup by 23 points. But in both cases, 20% of those polled were undecided.
He's starting out in a really good place because of his high favorabilities while governor, and even after he has left the governorship, he's still seen as a popular leader. The Democratic field right now isn't clear. It could be either of the two candidates.
Well, the Trone campaign responding, saying in part that this polling is part of Mitch McConnell's plan to, quote, advance the extremist Republican agenda. The Also Brooks campaign says neither Trone nor Hogan are winning over Marylanders. Well, on the national level, President Joe Biden's brother sat down with investigators on Capitol Hill today as part of the House's impeachment inquiry. James Biden told them his brother Joe never had any involvement or financial interest in his business ventures. For months, Republicans have tried to prove otherwise. Sinclair national correspondent Christine Frizzau live for us in Washington. Christine, what are House investigators hoping to learn from all of this?
You know, they want to know what James Biden did for all these years to get paid. He got paid a lot of money, and there's bank records, there's emails showing this, and they simply want to know what the job was or what was promised in return.
Mr. Biden, what do you make of the investigation, Mr. Biden?
Mr. James Biden on Capitol Hill to answer questions behind closed doors from the House Oversight Committee as part of a larger impeachment effort against his brother, President Joe Biden. In his opening statement, James Biden insisting he's never asked his brother to take any action on behalf of him or his business ventures, that he repaid debt from friends and family due to his kids' tuition payments, medical expenses, and hurricane damage to his home in Florida, adding, "I have nothing to hide." Evidence of he and other family members being paid by companies in China, Russia, and Romania has been laid out in emails, bank records, and from IRS investigators. The role of James Biden dating back at least to when his brother was serving as vice president.
I think their focus to James Biden should be very explicitly, what were you being paid for?
Critics have raised questions about this check for $200,000 for a, quote, loan repayment to Joe Biden from his brother and sister-in-law, though not while Joe Biden was in office, and about his role at AmeriCorps, a hospital management company that folded in 2022.
They're getting large checks from foreign entities, or in the case of AmeriCorps, a U.S. company, but there doesn't seem to be any discernible service or product that they are providing for that.
These questions come as a so-called trusted FBI informant, Alexander Smirnov, has just been charged with lying to the FBI about President Biden and his son Hunter, admitting to DOJ officials that he often got the information from Russian intelligence officials.
It now appears as if the House Republican majority is being used by Russia to interfere in the 2024 election on behalf of Donald Trump.
Calls to shut down the impeachment effort, though, being met with pushback.
The claims that Smirnov made and were never corroborated actually have nothing to do with the actual transference of funds that have taken place from these various foreign countries.
Now, in the coming days, we do expect those in the room today to trickle out information about exactly what James Biden said and how he answered questions. Next week, House investigators will meet with the man that's sort of been at the center of this investigation, Hunter Biden. Mary?
And Christy, we're seeing a lot from Biden family members, but the impeachment inquiry is based on the role of Joe Biden, all of this, right?
Yeah, that's right. And presumably the multiple witnesses that they've brought in are meant to answer questions about what, if any, role Joe Biden had. Did he profit off these businesses? Did he give anything in return for his family members being paid? So far, that is still what is missing in all of this. Mary?
All right, Christine reporting live for us from D.C. tonight. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about our next weather maker. It's really not far out. We've had a couple of days of quiet, some sunshine. Sure, it's been a little chilly, but this is pretty much right as we would normally be for this time of the year around here. The sun has set. Darkness has fallen here in our city of Baltimore. So the evening is setting up to be pretty pleasant. Otherwise, it's just going to be kind of a chilly one. Now let's talk about what is coming. This is our next weather maker. Doesn't look like much right now, but it's getting ready to gather some strength and moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico, and we are going to be looking at this becoming a decent storm system as we move into the next day or two. So let's show you what's happening here. This is starting really right now. Watch what happens to this storm system as we push it forward in time. You'll watch the moisture just stream in, and you will look at all that rainfall, especially across the southern and southeastern United States. Meanwhile, it's got enough moisture to bring some rainfall to our area, but not in the form of snowfall, not the cold air. So we're not going to be in that. That's the good news. So we don't have to deal with shoveling, but you may need an umbrella depending on the timing. This is going to be a Thursday night to Friday storm system as we are seeing it right now. So let's take you through future scan now. Tomorrow morning, we may start out pretty chilly with a little bit of patchy fog or low clouds, but most of that should actually dissipate. And then we actually see clouds thickening up a little higher up as the storm system begins to approach. Now, this is showing a little bit of precipitation around 2 o'clock. It may not quite get here at that time, but definitely as we move into the evening hours and overnight becoming likely here. So this is your late Thursday night into Friday morning. This is around 2 in the morning, so most of us will be in bed for that. But waking up Friday morning, we still have some clouds around, perhaps a lingering shower. The ground may be a little bit wet, but we're looking at temperatures still around 50 degrees. Look at this. It actually clears out and we could still see 50s on Friday before the wind changes out of the north, and then we get a lot colder. So this is a quick look at your car wash planner. I would say probably a red light for Thursday and Friday with this approaching rainfall. And Saturday, it's going to be pretty chilly and blustery. So unless you can take it through an automatic car wash, I'd say bucket washing probably not a good idea. Sunday will be in a little bit better shape, but look at our temperature trend. We're going to be up to the 60s into next week. Yes, we're going to get a little taste of spring around here. So your Thursday will start out dry with that chance of precipitation ramping up as we move in the evening. We'll be back in just a bit with your 10-day forecast.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
We have a little bit of everything in this photo from the Grand Canyon. On top, that's snow falling above the canyon. Below the white, the snow is melting into rain in warmer temperatures. Then sunshine hits the raindrops and forms a rainbow. People in New Orleans woke up this morning to a big blanket of fog over the Big Easy, and serene doesn't begin to describe this morning twilight in Mobile Bay.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
I'm Kayla Gaskins. Coming up, why one of the biggest concerns regarding the border crisis isn't just how many migrants are coming into the U.S. illegally, but who they are and where they're from.
Citizens from one of the United States' top adversaries now make up the fastest growing demographic of migrants attempting to enter the United States illegally. Sinclair National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story.
As the situation at the southern border deteriorates, it's not only the overwhelming amounts of illegal migrants causing concern, but where they're from.
Ma'am, where are you from?
China.
China?
China.
China?
Yeah.
China?
Yeah. China.
Chinese nationals becoming the fastest growing group entering the U.S. illegally.
We need to be very concerned about this, given that China is our #1 adversary.
In fiscal year 2021, Border Patrol apprehended 450 Chinese nationals. By 2022, that figure grew to more than 2,000, and in 2023, it surpassed 24,300. In the first few months of 2024, Border Patrol has already apprehended nearly 19,000 Chinese nationals at the southern border. One possible reason for this dramatic rise is the U.S. restricting visas as tensions heat up between the two nations. In 2016, 2.2 million temporary visas were issued to Chinese migrants. In 2022, that dropped to just 160,000. The Chinese are also much more likely to be granted asylum in the U.S. compared with other applicants.
Given the rapid increase of Chinese nationals crossing the border and how adversarial Beijing acts towards the U.S., we have to assume that much of this is state-sponsored.
And as Republicans sound the alarm on this new phenomenon,
clearly it shows that the border is completely open. Joe Biden wants it open.
Many Democrats chalk it up to political theater.
They're weaponizing immigration. They want to see if they can get votes for it.
In San Francisco, a non-citizen Chinese immigrant was just sworn in to serve on the city's election commission.
That is shocking. Citizenship should matter.
But Americans increasingly see the border as a major issue, and polling shows it's a weak spot for Joe Biden's re-election. The president reportedly weighing issuing an executive order to show he's taking Americans' concerns about the border seriously. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
All right, here's a look at your 10-day forecast. Yes, we have to deal with a couple chances of rainfall, mainly Thursday night into Friday morning. Most of this will fall while we are asleep. That's the good news. Dry for your weekend. However, it's going to be pretty blustery on Saturday. It's going to be windy with temperatures only in the 40s for highs. But we start a nice warm-up, 60s as we move into Tuesday and Wednesday. Some rain will likely come back again as we move into your Wednesday and likely into your Thursday. Little taste of some milder spring-like temperatures, just not as much sunshine as we would probably hope for, Mary.
Gerard, thank you. Well, finally tonight, former President Jimmy Carter becomes the first president ever to see a White House ornament honoring his legacy. The White House Historical Association revealed its official 2024 White House Christmas ornament today in honor of the 39th President of the United States. It's in the shape of an anchor reflecting Carter's service in the U.S. Navy. Well, that's all for Fox 45 News at 6. Family Feud's up next. We'll see you back here for the news at 10 tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.